But we start with Britain's most acclaimed female singer-songwriter, Kate Bush. She was the first solo woman to have a UK #1 album. She's had 25 hit singles and has inspired the likes of Bjork, Goldfrapp and Florence and the Machine. The release of a new Kate Bush record is a rare occurrence these days. She may have made 5 albums in the first 7 years between her debut, The Kick Inside, in 1978, and the one that many people regard as her masterpiece, The Hounds of Love. But she hasn't been heard from since 2005, when she released a double album, Ariel, and that one marked a return to the public eye after 12 years away. Her music has always been innovative, idiosyncratic, often at odds with the prevailing style of the time. She's toured only once and hasn't performed live since 1979. She has a reputation as a reluctant and elusive interviewee. And yet Kate Bush has agreed to talk to me at her home here in rural Berkshire about Director's Cut, a new album of sorts. It reworks tracks from 2 previous records, The Sensual World from 1989 and 1993's The Red Shoes. On the phone, Kate suggested we talk here because after we finish our interview, she can get straight to work in her home studio. Her musicians are also here today. So what will they be working on? A brand new Kate Bush album? Let's see. But first, I need buzzing in through a large pair of wooden gates just down the road there. Once inside, I was shown to the sitting room of a beautiful, large Georgian house. I started by asking Kate Bush why she decided to revisit The Sensual World and The Red Shoes.
This is what I want, but I know that it will never be mine. I felt that on both those albums there were some quite interesting songs, but that perhaps they hadn't had a chance to really speak properly. I don't really listen to my old stuff a lot, but my sense of them was that they could benefit from being revisited. With Red Shoes, I think there was a rather edgy sound, mainly due to the digital equipment that we were using at the time, which then everybody was working with digital because it was state of the art. And I've always been a huge fan of the analogue sound, so that was one of the things that was part of the main process with making this record, was to transfer everything back to analogue so that the sound would be warmer and fuller. I want you as a dream, not the reality. That clumsy goodbye kiss could fool me, but looking back over my shoulder, you're happy without me.
Has there always been a sort of lingering dissatisfaction with both of those records? Has it been a long-held thing that you want to go back and revisit and make them better? Yes.
I think there's always a long, lingering dissatisfaction with everything I've done. I think it's part of the process. I think it's as much a part of being a human being as an artist, that you look back on things that you've done, and at the time you've obviously done your best and felt that, you know, it had something of worth. But when you look back in hindsight, I think, you know, it's quite natural to think that you could have done it better.
And you've always felt that with every album. And when does that process kick in? Does it take a year or so, or are you dissatisfied within a couple of weeks?
I suppose it differs with each album. I think in some ways I'm just starting to get the hang of, you know, the whole piecing together of a recording process. There's always something wrong. Either, you know, I sing it stupidly, or I put lyrics in there that were wrong, or the production's not right, or, you know, that's why it's this continual learning process, and hopefully that you can learn from your mistakes. one thing I wanted to do was kind of strip a lot of the tracks out and create much more space, allow the tracks to breathe more and to sort of kind of have a more laid-back approach so they weren't trying to rush through. Give me these moments back.
It sounds more pared back. There's a spareness to the record and more of an intimacy almost. And you've re-recorded the vocals on each track.
Yeah, all the lead vocals and most of the backing vocals and all the drums. At one stage I nearly just gave up the whole project because I couldn't find a way back into the vocals. And then I realised that if I took the key down, because my voice is lower now, it suddenly gave me a way in.
Oh, so you've transposed all of the songs then?
Yeah, most of them. Yeah, not all, but most. And so then I could suddenly sing the songs as me now. That's what I needed, just that little shift. And I suddenly, there I was in the songs singing them as me now. I should be crying, just come let it show. I should be hoping that I can't stop thinking of all the things I should have said that I never said. Just because I'm older doesn't mean I can't still have a bit of fun.
And is it fun? Is there a sense of liberation when you sing in the studio?
Yeah, it can do. It's almost like, trying to find a character that's singing the song.
Are those songs sort of imprinted in your brain?
Yeah, I think they are. I think, well, certainly my impression of them, and with This Woman's Work and Moments of Pleasure, they were both totally re-recorded. And I think in some ways that's a little bit confusing for people to quite know what the album is.
So do you regard it as a new record?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, that's what I was hoping, was that, I'd be able to breathe new life into it and for it to feel somehow fresher. The process is very similar to a new record, and I think it sounds like a new record.
There is almost a prerogative, isn't there, as an artist, not to look back. It's that Dylan thing, isn't it? She's an artist, she don't look back. And you have very rarely looked back because you don't play live. It's not like you bring a new interpretation to the song every time you take to the stage. So this is your version of that process of reinterpretation.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been very lucky because I've got a lot of creative freedom when I'm working in the studio. The albums don't cost a lot of money. It's a very small process. Most of the time it's probably just myself and a couple of other people.
And you're working here at home, you have the studio at home, so it makes it quite a domestic process as well then.
Yes, it does. I mean, I think that's important for me because if I didn't have it here, I probably wouldn't be able to work.
But do you stick to a routine? Is there a working day for Kate Bush these days? You have to get to the studio, to the office at 9 o'clock and work through 8 hours, or is it whenever the muse takes you?
No, it's normally a Monday to Friday process, just to try and keep it moving along. Otherwise it would take even longer.
Even longer?
Yeah.
We start with what was the title track of The Sensual World. That's got a new title now. It's now Flower of the Mountain. And if we look at, I don't have the finished album here, and so the credits are not there, but I presume it's now going to say music Kate Bush, lyrics James Joyce.
Yes.
Yes, first I gave him a bit of sweet cake out of my mouth, and it was leap year like now.
And it's Molly Bloom's soliloquy from the end of Ulysses.
Yes.
Her climactic soliloquy.
Yes, I mean, it's incredibly beautiful. I mean, it's a very sexy piece as well, but it's so beautifully written.
He said I was a flower of the mountains, so we are flowers on a woman's body. Yes.
When I'd approached for permission, I was refused.
First time round when you recorded Sensual World.
And, understandably so, they were being protective of a really classic piece of literature, and I think that's good. People should be protective. But, of course, I was very disappointed and had to kind of go away and rewrite my own lyrics, which they were okay, but, I'm not James Joyce, and so the idea was never as interesting as the original. So coming back to this project now, I had the chance to just ask again because they could only say no again, which actually was what I was expecting them to say.
But they said, and were you talking directly to Stephen Joyce, the grandson of James Joyce? Because he is the great protector of the estate, isn't he?
Yes, he is. I just can't believe that I was given permission. I'm still over the moon about it. It was just such an incredible feeling for them to say yes.
That's the great thing about this piece, isn't it? Because the repeated refrain, the word that is repeated by Molly Bloom in that passage is yes.
Yes.
And you think yes. So they've said yes to yes.
Yes.
I think it's the first time ever that the Joyce estate has allowed his work to be used, certainly in a pop record.
I don't know, but listen, I'm just so grateful.
It's taken them 22 years to say yes then.
Yes, although I had only asked originally. It's not like I've kept ringing.
Right, okay.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I love you more. I love you more forever. Yeah, show me that you love me.
And in the studio, you've obviously been reworking these songs and you're seeking new inspiration and reinterpretation. And it's sparked off the process of recording new material. So you finished this record, Director's Cut, but you're now working on another album.
Yes.
How far through are you?
I've done most of the writing.
And how does the writing start? In a notebook, are you sitting at the table and writing lyrics first, or does it always start with a suggestion of a melody or some kind of rhythm even?
Well, I've put a packet of bone meal on my piano, and it seems to be helping the sort of blossoming of the songs.
Bone meal?
Yeah.
That you would normally put in the garden?
Yes, I mean, it wasn't deliberate. I was en route to the garden and happened to have a packet of bone meal and just left it on the piano, and it was there for a few days, and then I noticed that actually I'd written a couple of songs since it had been there, so I thought I'd just leave it there and see if it sped the process up a bit.
It's working its magic through the ivory somehow.
Yeah.
And what are the can you give us any idea of what the songs are sounding like? Is it going to be very different to this set that you're presenting with Director's Cut?
Yeah, they're quite bone mealy, I think.
More organic?
I think they're different. I think they're quite different. But then that's very important for me with each album, that it feels like I'm doing something different. So hopefully there's something that's a new approach or a new sort of genre that's involved in each album.
So Ariel was quite electronic in a way, and there was a lot of soundscapes on that record. I think you can get lost in a world of Ariel. And with this record, with the revisiting of Sensual World and Red Shoes on Director's Cut, I think there's a great sense of intimacy. So where's the new album going to sit? Somewhere between those two, or...?
With quite a few of these new songs, I've kind of gone back to an older approach where I would sit at the piano and just keep working them. So, they're much more kind of worked in before they go into the studio. And
thematically, lyrically, are they stories, or do you look at yourself? Are they autobiographical songs? Because you've always been a narrative lyricist.
Yeah, I think, telling stories is the kind of buzz for me, really. And although obviously my life does seep into my work, it would be impossible for it not to. I don't think I could say really any of my work is autobiographical. Most of it is, a kind of made-up story, but I'm putting experiences that I've had into it. The whole thing is such an elusive process.
But you've got how many songs, most of them written?
Yeah.
You're not going to give too much away about this, are you?
No, I just think, you can't talk about something that isn't finished.
When do you expect it to be heard?
Let's see.
Next year? Couple of years?
I don't know. It's very frustrating that the albums take as long as they do, and I wish there weren't such big gaps between them. Sometimes it's extremely stressful.
Are you a perfectionist? Is that what it is?
Well, I don't think I am. People have said this, but I don't think I really want anything to be perfect. I mean, I think it's important that things are flawed. That's what makes a piece of art interesting sometimes, is the bit that's wrong, or the mistake that you've made that's led on to an idea that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think, perfection is something that it's not particularly something that you want.
And other people's songs, are you listening to other albums when you are in the studio, when you're making the record? Do other influences feed in?
No, I don't really listen to a lot of other music. When you're in the studio all the time listening to stuff, you kind of want to do something different. I do buy the odd album. Bought Elton John and Leon Russell. I thought that was lovely.
Yeah, The Union.
Bought the last Gorillaz album, and I'm not a complete old fart all the time.
You're not afraid to feel.
first record, 1978, that was The Kick Inside, and you toured that record. The last gig you ever played was 1979 at Hammersmith Odeon.
I think a lot of people think that I didn't enjoy touring, which, you know, I could understand why they would think that because I've only done it the once, but actually it was a huge amount of fun. It was a bit like being part of a circus troupe. You know, it was very exciting because of the spontaneity of working live, and we had the most incredible reactions from the audiences. So, I mean, you know, a couple of times I've thought about trying to do some live work, but I've got no plans. I'm busy working on this record, but I would hate to say that I would never do any kind of shows again because it was fun.
Thinking back to the Hammersmith Odeon show, I mean, it was quite theatrical, wasn't it? And you were very much the performer, and you were doing the mime and the dance routines, and I think there is video of that. It's been released, hasn't it? Do you look back at that person on stage, and does that look like a very different artist to the one that you are today?
Well, again, I haven't seen that since it was done, so...
Really? You've never looked back at it?
No.
So you're not saying you will never perform live again? It might happen. You'd be tempted.
Well, I don't know. I've got no plans to tour or do shows at all. I don't really know how I could make that work with my life at the moment. It would really interfere with my family life. And I'm very busy trying to make this record now, which is, you know, an absorbing process. So.
And so family and home life, that is paramount. That is of utmost importance to you. And you wouldn't set that aside because you'd need rehearsal time and you'd have to go on the road. You can't foresee a time when you would do that again.
Well, I'm sure that, you know, things will change. But no, at the moment, my family life it's incredibly important to me, and it comes first, and then my work fits in around it, which is quite easy to do with the recording process. But something like doing shows would be incredibly disruptive, and I just can't see that would be something that would work at this stage.
Do you have strong memories of performing to an audience, to a crowd, to, you know, playing those theatres 30-odd years ago and more?
Well, it was a really long time ago.
You don't have dreams about being on stage anymore. It's so far in the past.
I do have the odd dream where I'm on stage and I've completely forgotten what I'm meant to be singing. So they're more nightmares than dreams. No, it was great. I had a really great time.
So it's not anxiety, it's not a fear of performing then? It wasn't stage fright that stopped you taking the songs onto the live stage?
No, it didn't stop me, although I think, you know, if I were to do any live work, I would be absolutely petrified to start with, as I was with the original tour. But after a couple of days, once you realise you can do it, it gives you a sense of confidence knowing that you've done it a couple of times, then you're okay.
You don't go back to listen to the album, so it's probably a hard question to answer, but is there a single Kate Bush album which is your favourite?
I quite like Ariel because I think it was also very tied in with a very lovely time of my life when my son was very little, and it was a very special time for me and very creative. And I thought Hounds of Love was quite good as well, but I mean, Hounds of Love, I haven't heard that not long since after it was actually made, so it's, you know, it's a long time. I can't have heard it for 20 odd years.
But if you do hear one of your songs, either, I don't know, driving along on the radio or in the shops, do you stop and listen, or do you move on quickly? When was the last time that happened? Can you remember?
Well, I don't often hear my stuff on the radio.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you wanna feel how it feels?
When did I last hear something? I think I heard Running Up That Hill on the radio a few months ago.
Did you turn it up? Sing along?
No, I thought it was all right, actually. That wasn't bad, that one.
Falling chord and make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places. Be running up that road.
So you're going back to work now?
I am.
Straight across to the studio, and you're going to carry on working?
I am, yes.
Vocals this afternoon?
No, somebody else is today.
Guest vocalist?
Yes, a guest vocalist.
So you have recorded some vocals already?
Might have done.
I'm going to be escorted off the premises now, aren't I? Kate, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, John.
Kate Bush. The album Director's Cut is out on the 16th of May. Anger has